can you really just talk about the scrimmage tomorrow? It will be the first official scrimmage of training camp, and just what you think the intensity is going to be like, what style of play you're going to see, and the physicality that you're going to see.
Well, I think the intensity will be high. I think our guys understand that we have to use these scrimmages as both, I guess, springboards to get ready for the season, get ready for games. They're the only thing we have. We don't have exhibitions. And also to figure out who's going to be in what spot. So I think the intensity would be higher than it would be, let's say, in one of the scrimmages up in Traverse City in a camp when you have 8 more exhibitions to go in 3 more weeks. So I think it's going to be a lot different that way. We're certainly going to treat it as such, more serious, make sure that we get lots out of it. I've waited a few days to make sure we get a lot of our systems in place so guys know what they're doing when they're out there, and it's a chance for them to go live. Physicality wise, we certainly want to come out of the scrimmage with probably a couple things. One, getting game ready without any injuries. So, I think the bigger part of that would be stopping on people, stopping on pucks, those habits. When you play in the summer, you just kind of float by things. When you're in real hockey, you're stopping all the time. So I think it's stopping on people and stopping on pucks will be more important than the actual physicality of it.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Next up is Max Boltman with The Athletic.
Hey, Jeff, I was just curious. I think I've seen Anthony Mantha in a couple of the penalty kill roles so far in the last few days. Is that something you're considering for him this year, or just kind of filling out drills right now?
Considering. We're considering, honestly. We're taking a look at a number of guys. Pretty much anybody that you've seen killing is being under consideration for getting a chance to kill during the season. Anthony's a guy who has a really long stick, obviously long body, just makes it hard for, if he's on the blue line in the 1-3 PK forecheck, he can cover so much area in terms of the width that he covers. And he makes it hard for people to penetrate our line. And he's got a good defensive stick in zone. And so, he hasn't done it in pro much, but I think he has the instincts to have a chance to be able to do it. Let's see where we're at. Part of that probably depends on how good some of the other guys are, how good they do as well. But we're certainly not, we're certainly keeping our eyes wide open for it and see how Anthony does, and amongst a number of other guys.
I think I saw him out there with Dylan a couple times, though. I don't know if that was the rotation, but if you have 2 guys who have that kind of, I guess, number 1 speed and number 2 offensive ability, does that kind of make you a little more dangerous, I guess, in that phase of the game too?
Well, I think first off, you got to be great killing the penalty, so we got to make sure that you're great on the D side, but just like 5-on-5. And then I think when you have that level of, talented offensive player out there that's doing a real good job defensively, for sure it makes a threat. And for sure, as you get some of those chances, that makes the power play nervous. And it's really hard to play on the power play if you're nervous about getting scored on. That's not the way the mindset is supposed to work. So if you can get a guy like Dylan and a guy like Mantha out there in those situations, you're putting yourself in potential to, create scoring chances offensively, while killing the penalty and maybe make them nervous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is from Helene St. James with the Detroit Free Press.
Jeff, just going back to the scrimmage tomorrow, without an exhibition game, do you sense guys kind of more maybe look at this as, I got to make sure I don't lose my role on this line and such, that there's really much more in competition at stake?
These scrimmages will be nothing like, normal scrimmages, again, in training camp, that you see, like even for the red-white game. We play that game for a multitude of reasons. It's on the 3rd or 4th day of camp. You haven't had, it's after a real practice. It generally is to get a little feel for 5-on-5, get a little, have a chance for the fans to see the players. This is going to be real, as real as it gets without really, without playing against another team. So, I think personally the scrimmages, it's been a hard 4 days, so I think their energy level will be good tomorrow. I think they'll get better as they go along. I assume the 3rd scrimmage will be the most intense. That would be generally the way it is if you play 3 exhibition games. Guys like playing them closest to playing. So, we'll use tomorrow as a good evaluation. I think our guys understand that, whether you're trying out for, penalty kill spots, whether you're trying out for power play spots or trying out for spots on the team. I think they understand what's at stake.
Just a guy like Namestnikov, did you have a harder time maybe figuring out which line he should be on? Because he seems like he's very versatile and you really could plug him in anywhere?
Yeah, I don't know about a harder time, but it's definitely, he is versatile. I think that's one of the best attributes for him. He's a really good player. He does a lot of good things. I think he has said to me, one of the things he takes pride in now after being in the league a number of years is how well he plays defensively, his penalty kill, those types of things. So I think he's a guy who's mature in his game now, and he can play the wing. He can play either wing. He can play the center position. So, right now we've got him started there, obviously with Philpott and Gagne, and we'll see where it goes from here. But he's certainly a guy that can move really up and down the lineup and hopefully make each line better.
Thanks.
Next up, Nick Katsanika with NHL.com.
Hey, Jeff, I'm just wondering if what you think about coaches maybe taking a little different approach in the regular season. And what I mean by that is it's instead of, traveling from city to city, playing different team every night, you've got 8 games against one opponent. You'll see them 2 or 3 times in a row. It'll be more like a playoff approach. Like, do you think breaking down opponents, X's and O's, matchups, sort of that chess game will be more of a factor in the regular season?
Well, I think it has a chance to be more of a factor. Becomes a little less about pure pre-scouts and more about adjustments. Like you said, that would be similar to the playoffs. It's similar to, what I've done in the American League, and honestly, really similar to college. And it's been a while since I've coached college, but that's exactly what it is. You go at each other lots back to back, and you're trying to make adjustments for that second day. And so, the way that we break the games down post game will be a little bit different. A little different, even different maybe than what we had planned on doing, because we had expected originally a normal schedule and then made adjustments as it looked like it was going to be something like this. So, it'll definitely be different, maybe a little bit more of a chess game, maybe certainly more in terms of those little adjustments that you make. And, the thing about hockey, they're not huge adjustments. It is not football. You don't have enough stops and starts to control everything and know every situation. It is a very, very fluid game. So it still comes down to your players' habits, your players' instincts in those situations. But I do think you can make certain little adjustments, and especially teams would be a big part of that.
Thank you.
Next question is Ted Colfin with the Detroit News.
Hey, Jeff, I'm just wondering, are you guys further ahead right now in terms of installing stuff and schemes and all that compared to what it would be in Traverse City, like 4 days into that camp in September, just because of you have to be this time around? I mean, are you guys a little further ahead in that way?
Well, I would say the one thing for sure is generally you get into exhibition season, and in the exhibition games are good, but you don't get enough practice time. You just don't. You don't get enough practice time as a group. And so, I think from a preparation standpoint, if we could normally have something like this, especially the first week where you're not traveling, you're not having any exhibitions, you're keeping your groups the same, it's much easier to implement your systems way quicker. And, I think that's what the bubble teams found in the summer. Talking to a lot of those teams, it's just easier that way. So, I do think we're further ahead. Again, we get to kind of choose, when we play the exhibition and what makes most sense, the scrimmage for us. And so I think that's allowed us to basically implement all our systems either on the ice or through video prior to playing that scrimmage. So now you can play, and you play with the knowledge of how you're going to play. And it just gives you more consecutive days in a row and more practice time, which I think is important.
And piggybacking off Nick's question a little bit and just what you just said, I mean, we're still a couple weeks away from that, but this regular season, it just doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of time for quality practices. Do you kind of notice that too, or what do you think about that?
I think one of the hardest things in the NHL is getting enough practice time. I think it's easily one of the hardest challenges you face as a coach. It's the least amount of practice time of any league that you'll coach in. You just simply don't get it. So you got to really get your foundation in place in camp, and then you got to try to find ways to maximize your practice time. And what you got to do is probably narrow your focus as much as possible to a couple areas that you're going to try to be real good at, and then the guys are going to have to read and react off tape, learn off tape, and then read and react out there properly. So once we get going, I don't know that it's more than normal. I think it might be a tad bit, but I think pretty much in the NHL, you're playing every other day anyways. That's just the reality of the schedule in a normal season. It feels like it's every other day, and you're constantly battling, when you can practice and when you can't practice, and rest versus practice and all those things. So, we're gonna do the best we can on those practice days to make sure that we're playing to our identity, that we're getting something out of it, and keeping our focus narrowed.
And just last one, what made you finally decide on Robby Fabbri as center? What was the turning point or whatnot?
Well, we made a decision last year, really organizationally. I talked with Steve about it as well. And, Robby, I think, wants a chance to play center. And so we were going to play him center the rest of the year last year. And I think he only got 2 or 3 games because of the pause. And so, but he looked good in those couple games. And I think he's really gives us a chance to have a number 2 center, a guy that can play in the top 6 at the center position. And I think he's excited about it. I talked to him this summer and said, depending what our roster looks like we didn't know for sure what would happen. You make trades. Are there other things at play? You just never know what the roster is going to look like. But if the roster looked similar, I told him I'd give him a chance, and so we'll go out, we'll see. And if he plays really good at center, he'll stay at center. And if he doesn't, then we'll try to make him a great winger. But right now our focus is helping him get super comfortable at center before the year starts, and then going out and playing.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Next up is Carly Johnson with Red Wings TV.
Hey, Coach, how's it going?
Good, Carly. You?
Good. Thank you. Okay, so now looking at some of the new guys we have, the 6 new guys, Ryan, Namestnikov, Merrill, Stetcher, we got Grice and Stahl. Are these guys gelling well? Now we're in day 4 or so of camp, and how hard of a transition is it to be a new guy in this situation that we're in right now?
Well, I would say first, we do have a number of new faces, and that's one of the things I talked to our team about. Like, we're going to have to gel as quickly as possible, and I think we're moving towards that. I think it's once you get going in the year, when you're really down to just your few guys, which this year will be different too because of the taxi squad. But, once you get to your team, it's a little bit easier and a little bit quicker in those situations. Some of these guys have been here a little bit longer and skating with some guys, and maybe have gotten more comfortable because of that. And some guys haven't spent as much time, and it just takes time to be comfortable. I think everybody's a little different too. Like, everybody handles their situation a little different. I would say the one thing that would make it easier for all 6 of those guys is there's a lot of them. So it's not like walking onto a team where everybody knows each other and everything's set in stone. It's a lot of new fresh faces, including some of the young guys. So, I think we just got to keep doing everything we can to help these guys get comfortable. I think people play their best when they're in comfortable situations where they can be real confident and go out and play their best. So that's what we'll do.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Next question is from Ansar Khan with MLive.
Yeah, Jeff, Phil Oronic last year logged a ton of ice time. I'm sure probably more than you would have liked to have seen because of the injuries and everything. And I think you mentioned that you want to see guys like right around the 20 mark this year. By reducing his minutes, how much do you think that would help, or how much would you think that will affect his play? And what also do you see as like the next progression for him, just continuing to improve defensively?
I'll get the last point first. Yeah, I think first of all, Phil's a tremendous competitor. He's a good hockey player. Does a lot of things good. He's been really, really good in practice here. He's really competed hard. He looks like he's on top of his game. I think Phil. I think for a lot of these guys, we got to minimize. We got to lessen the amount of scoring chances that we give up when we're on the ice. And he's one of those guys that, we just want to create a separation between scoring chances for and scoring chances against. And so to lessen the bottom side makes a separation even greater. And it's way easier to do that than to increase your scoring chances. So, improve that defensive side is going to be important. He's going to try to fight to be on the ice as much as he can. And by that, I mean, he's going to fight through his play. Like, he's going to go out and play as well as possible. And he wants to play all night. Like, that's the way he's wired. And you love that about him for sure. We just, as a coaching staff, have to make sure that it's quality over quantity. And that's the thing that I've said to him is, I don't necessarily want to put a target minute on it, but I want all quality. And if we're playing him so much that he can't give us great shifts because he's too tired or everything's at 70% instead of every shift being at 100%. That's not good for him, and that's not good for us. So we're looking at quantity. Have those 8+ shifts over and over and over again. And if that ends up eating up 24 minutes, great. If it's 20 minutes, great. I just want to make sure that it's all quality shifts.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be back with our player availability shortly.